We are looking at changing our terms and conditions to say for international travellers that we will ask people to have a vaccination before they can get on the aircraft.
Tonight, the race for a COVID-19 vaccine continues as Qantas announces that all future international travellers will need to prove that they have been vaccinated in order to board flights, as it's revealed that up to 3 vaccines are on the horizon and could be available to the public as soon as next year. Jack Hahn will join us live with the latest. Also tonight, Australian academic Kylie Moore-Gilbert freed from an Iranian jail after being detained for more than 2 years in an apparent prisoner swap that's seen 3 Iranians held abroad reportedly returned to their country. Details coming up shortly. And later, Donald Trump gives his closest indication yet that he will concede the US election as Joe Biden names more picks for his upcoming cabinet. Good evening. With news of up to 3 COVID-19 vaccines currently on the horizon, hopes have now turned to the sky. Qantas has said that all future international travellers will need to prove that they have been vaccinated in order to board a flight, and that could also apply to domestic flights. But how likely are we to touch down on foreign soil next year? Chief Reporter Jack Hahn explains.
Tonight, our dreams to take to the skies in a Dreamliner might be a little closer.
It's that we will probably get a significant amount of the international operation up in the next financial year. It is dependent on the vaccine, but the news on the vaccine is looking really, really positive.
The hope of international travel comes with our dose of hope, which has arrived. 3 major companies have announced vaccines with success rates ranging from 70 to 95%. Our best bet? The Oxford vaccine. Early results suggest the standard 2 doses has a 70% efficacy rate, but when the vaccine was delivered in half a dose, then a full dose, it produced a 90% success rate.
AstraZeneca have taken on contracts to manufacture as many as 3 billion doses of this vaccine over the next 12 months, which would be absolutely extraordinary and fantastic. But if you could use the half-dose regime, that 3 billion would suddenly become 4.5 billion doses.
The American-based Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have had a 95% efficacy rate, but they require special storage and to be at bone-chilling temperatures, almost minus 70 degrees Celsius. And for us down under, transporting those frigid vaccines from Dubbo to Dunedoo could be difficult, which is why the Oxford vaccine, which in comparison only requires a balmy 2 to 8 degrees, is well suited for transport across our vast country. But Pfizer says they could still transport their minus 70 degree vaccine.
Pfizer have done some really clever work on what are, I guess Australians will call them eskies. They're very sophisticated eskies which require dry ice, and they actually last for 14 days. Even in a country the size of Australia, you can get anywhere much quicker than that.
The news of a jab is a drip of good news, with coronavirus cases climbing globally and the hopes of a pre-vaccine travel bubble all but burst. And the situation in the United States and Europe is deteriorating rapidly, making all but certain international travel will be grounded until the vaccine lifts off sometime next year, and you'll hear the words,
"Have a great flight."
Leo, the vaccine really is our golden ticket to international travel, but what will that look like? The CEO of Qantas, Alan Joyce, has said that they will have a policy of no jab, no fly, which means customers will need to prove they've been vaccinated for the coronavirus before they step on an international flight, either going out of Australia or returning home. Now, that raises big logistical questions. What will that proof look like? Will you be able to go to a GP and just get a doctor's note, or will there be a streamlined international approach to proving you've been vaccinated, say maybe getting a stamp in your passport? These are all questions still yet to be answered, but the good news tonight, Leo, international travel is certainly back on the cards for 2021, very likely indeed. So if you want to land on foreign soil next year, you're likely to do so. Leo.
Alright, Jack Hahn live for us tonight. Thank you. Australian academic Kylie Moore-Gilbert has been freed from an Iranian jail after being detained there for more than 2 years. Iran first announced that she had been freed on state television in an apparent prisoner swap that's seen 3 Iranians held abroad returned to their country. Prime Minister Scott Morrison said he spoke with Dr. Moore-Gilbert following her release.
Dr. Kylie Moore-Gilbert is coming home. This is a great day for Australia, and it's obviously a wonderful day for Kylie and her family. Obviously her family has asked, as has Kylie, that we respect their privacy as Kylie returns home and makes what will be a very significant adjustment. This has been a consular case that we have been working on now for 2 years, and I particularly want to commend Foreign Minister Marise Payne and all of her team, both within the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and the Ambassador on the ground and her team, but also there have been many other agencies and their officials who have supported this incredibly important task.
Dr. Moore-Gilbert was a Melbourne University lecturer on Middle Eastern studies when she was sent to a prison in Tehran in September 2018, one of several Westerners held in the country on internationally criticised espionage charges. Activists are now calling for the release of all political prisoners, with many people still detained. Returning to our continuous coverage of the coronavirus pandemic now, and a repatriation flight carrying 120 Australians has touched down in Canberra. Large sections of the departure area at Canberra Airport were closed off to travellers due to the incoming flight, with domestic passengers stopped by security from walking through some spaces. Passengers on board the Singapore Airlines flight will now go into hotel quarantine for the next fortnight and will again be tested for COVID-19 in the coming days. ACT Health Minister Rachel Stephen-Smith said extra precautions had been taken, saying staff will check in with people every day in quarantine to see if passengers have what they need. It's the first repatriation flight to land in the capital since June and the third there since the start of the pandemic, with hopes now of a fourth flight to touch down in the ACT before Christmas. Tasmania has reopened its border to Victoria early after the state recorded its 28th straight day of no COVID-19 cases or deaths, meaning the virus has effectively been eliminated. The Spirit of Tasmania has already scheduled Sunday sailings over the next 2 weekends to cater for extra demand, and airports are also expecting a lot more travellers. And there have been plenty of emotional scenes when families and friends reunited with the border closed for nearly 8 months. Tasmania's Premier Peter Gutwin describing the border reopening as a significant milestone, and Queensland will also reopen its border to all of New South Wales and Victoria on December the 1st, this Tuesday, with the state's Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk congratulating Daniel Andrews and Brett Sutton. Reporter Connor Alfagay has more.
It's brought heartache and headache, safety and exasperation. But for all the controversy surrounding Queensland's tough border stance, the reaction to its reopening was unanimous.
This is probably the best news we've heard for 2020. I think it's brilliant.
From the New South Wales Premier, best phone call I've had in ages. Pleased to hear the border will come down. Tourism operators and school holiday makers revelling in the news. Queensland's Iron Curtain finally lifted to New South Wales and Victoria, allowing families to reunite for Christmas. Parts of South Australia, however, remain locked out of the Sunshine State. From December 1, at the exclusion of South Australia, those dreaded border passes will be gone. Interstate travellers will no longer be required to quarantine. The only Border Patrol checks that will remain are those on South Australian flights and on cars with SA plates. A further 11 million people will be allowed to enter Queensland from Tuesday, pumping billions into the state's economy.
Online bookings for domestic is the highest we've ever had, so broke an all-time record.
Right now, a total of 8 flights are coming into the state each day from New South Wales and Victoria. That'll be beefed up to 46 flights once the border blockade is lifted, bringing back lost aviation jobs. Although airfares are currently sky high, but as demand increases, prices are expected to compensatingly decrease. On the accommodation front, Hotels are filling up fast. There have been around 20 amendments to Queensland's border rules since the COVID crisis began, but this is perhaps the most longed for. But tourism operators are worried the Premier could slam the border shut once again if there is another outbreak in southern states. Anastasia Palaszczuk has said anything could happen.
I think what we've seen with Adelaide is that when you do have an outbreak, you can declare a hotspot area.
We're told a new national hotspot regime is set to be enforced, stipulating that only hotspots, not entire states, can be locked out. However, that could change depending on the size of the outbreak.
Alright, let's go live now to Connor, our 4K, who's standing by for us tonight. Connor, if you're looking to holiday in Queensland, the weather conditions aren't exactly ideal.
Leo, it is so hot here, some people have termed Queensland the sweaty armpit of Australia. Now, the Bureau is forecasting a severe heatwave for parts of Western Queensland next week, where temperatures are set to reach 46 degrees. That's 12 above average. Now, this record-breaking heat is set to trigger a series of storms. Meanwhile, Melbourne is sitting in the low 30s, high 20s. So, Leo, something to keep an eye on if you're travelling to Queensland in the next week.
Alright, Connor, our 4K live for us tonight, thank you. And for the latest details on the coronavirus pandemic, anytime, anywhere, make sure you follow us on social media for our continuous coverage. We will have breaking news on new or relaxed restrictions, full press conferences, and of course, the latest case and death numbers. Search 6 News AU to find us. Telstra has admitted to unconscionable conduct and will have to pay a $50 million fine after the ACCC wrapped up its 18-month investigation into the telco. The Guardian reports that Telstra admitted to exploiting language and cultural barriers to sign up more than 100 Indigenous people to mobile phone contracts that in one case led to a debt of $19,000. ACCC Chair Rod Sims told the ABC he was shocked by what the investigation uncovered, saying it exploited vulnerabilities in the most extreme sense, adding it is extremely concerning behaviour. The inquiry was launched after serious concerns were raised by a number of financial counsellors in rural and remote areas. Telstra has agreed to consent orders that would support a penalty totalling $50 million, but ultimately it would be up to the court to decide how much the company should pay. US President Donald Trump has given his closest indication yet that he will concede the election as he clashed with reporters at the White House. Take a look.
We know there was massive fraud. So as to whether or not I can get this apparatus moving this quickly, because time isn't on our side, everything else is on our side, facts are on our side. This was a massive fraud. This should never take place in this country. We're like a third world country. We have machines that nobody knows what the hell they're looking at. I think it's a possibility. They're trying to look between you people. Don't talk to me that way. You're just a lightweight. Don't talk to me that way. I'm the president of the United States. Don't ever talk to the president that way. All right, I'm going to go with another question. Go ahead.
So if the Electoral College does elect President-elect Joe Biden, are you not going to leave this building?
Just so you, certainly I will.
And this comes as Joe Biden names more picks for his upcoming cabinet, including former presidential candidate John Kerry. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the latest details.
Leo, we are monitoring many developments from here in the U.S. as it relates to the 2020 election. Joe Biden is the projected winner of the election. However, President Trump is not backing down despite him signing off giving briefings to the Biden transition team. Now, the Biden campaign has been asking for briefings on intelligence matters and national security issues since Biden was the projected winner, but President Trump refused. Recently, though, he did sign off, allowing them to be updated each day and have access to funding for a smooth transition. President Trump tweeted the news, but he also said that he will not back down, saying that he won the election. Many outlets again say that President Trump has no evidence on his voter fraud claims, and President Trump's lawsuits have been thrown out in a number of courts, but the president wants it to go to the Supreme Court. He says that's where he'll have the highest success as it relates to the 2020 election. Now, Joe Biden is continuing to work out plans to ensure that he will have a fully staffed White House, picking several top aides to him as the president, and then Kamala Harris also joining him in many telebriefings talking to frontline workers about the coronavirus. We'll continue to follow the latest as it relates to the election from right here in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell, back to you.
Mourners of soccer legend Diego Maradona have clashed with riot police in Argentina. Maradona was buried at a private ceremony after a day of emotional scenes, with only around 24 relatives and close friends attending. The former attacking midfielder and manager suffered a heart attack at his home. He was captain when Argentina won the 1986 World Cup, scoring the famous Hand of God goal against England in the quarterfinals. Diego Maradona was 60. China has placed extreme tariffs on all Australian wine imports, striking a devastating blow to the industry. The new tariffs range from 107% all the way up to more than 200% after the Chinese government accused Australian producers of selling wine for below the cost of production. Agriculture Minister David Littleproud said the government was in contact with Chinese authorities and said he is moving quickly to work with the industry.
The motivations really are ones for China, but I can understand well and truly why people would draw the conclusions and how the perception has been created that this is a deliberate strategy, piling on pressure in a number of different sectors, it would seem, and that's of deep concern. It's a deep concern to many Australian businesses in their operations.
And shares in one of Australia's largest exporters, that being Treasury Wine Estates, plunged 11% as the news was being confirmed. The announcement comes amid worsening trade relations that have seen China impose tariffs on Australian barley. Finally tonight, if you've got a fear of spiders, look away. But for the rest of you, take a look at this. A Queensland man has snapped a photo of a mega spider on the wall of his home, which is really shocked social media users, and it shocked me too. Some have suggested that the Cairns local Jake Gray should burn it with fire or alternatively move out of his home. That is a huge spider. That is, I have not seen one as big as that ever, and obviously I'm only seeing it as a photo, so I can't imagine what he was imagining when he saw that. But have you ever seen a bigger spider, and do you know what type this spider is? You can let us know in the comments section below. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date with all the latest news on all our social pages. Just search 6 News AU to find us. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.